Morning, friends. Welcome to the Sunday meeting of the United Lodge of Theosophists. Um, Brief words from the Declaration. It is the policy of this lodge to devote time, work, and money to the cause of the Theosophical movement without professing attachment to any Theosophical organization. It is loyal, however, to the founders of the great Theosophical movement, ancient and modern, but it does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. Now, the work it has on hand and end it keeps in view are too absorbent and too lofty to leave time or inclination to take part in those side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of theosophy and an exemplification and practice of those principles through a true conviction or realization of the self and a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. The bond, or the basis, you could say, for union among the students of the lodge is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching. Therefore, it has no constitution, bylaws, or officers. And it aims to disseminate that idea among theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as theosophists all who are engaged in a true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, condition, organization, etc. And it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with these or its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true theosophists belong to no cult or sect, yet belong to each and all. The reading for today comes from the Voice of the Silence, the section, The Two Paths. Saith the pupil, O teacher, what shall I do to reach to wisdom? O wise one, what to gain perfection? Search for the paths, but, O Lanu, be of clean heart before thou startest on thy journey. Before thou takest thy first step, learn to discern the real from the false, the ever fleeting from the everlasting. Learn above all to separate head learning from soul wisdom, the eye from the heart doctrine. Yea, ignorance is like unto a closed and airless vessel, the soul a bird shut up within. It wobbles not, nor can it stir a feather, but the songster mute and torpid sits, and her exhaustion dies. But even ignorance is better than head learning with no soul wisdom to illuminate and guide it. The seeds of wisdom cannot sprout and grow in airless space. To live and reap experience, the mind needs breadth and depth and points to draw it towards the diamond soul. Seek not those points in Maya's realm, but soar beyond illusions. Search the eternal and the chainless sight, mistrusting fancy's false suggestions. For mind is like a mirror, it gathers dust while it reflects. It needs the gentle breeze of soul wisdom to brush away the dust of our illusions. Seek, O beginner, to blend thy mind and soul. Shun ignorance, and likewise shun illusion. Avert thy face from world deceptions. Mistrust thy senses, they are false. But within thy body, the shrine of thy sensations, seek in the impersonal for the eternal man. And having sought him out, look inward, thou art Buddha. Praise shun, O devotee. Praise leads to self-delusion. The body is not self. Thyself is in itself without a body, and either praise nor blame affects it not. Self-gratulation, O disciple, is likened to a lofty tower, up which a haughty fool has climbed. Thereon he sits in prideful solitude, and unperceived by any but himself. False learning is rejected by the wise, and scattered to the winds by the good law. Its wheel revolves for all, the humble and the proud. The doctrine of the eye is for the crowd. the doctrine of the heart for the elect. The first repeat in pride, behold, I know. The last, they who in humbleness have garnered low confess, thus have I heard. Now today's talk, the practical occultism, and next week be the mystery of numbers.
Thank you. Welcome, friends. Today's talk is on practical occultism. Why should we talk about this during this season? Because the Earth's atmosphere is young and it gives impetus to whatever it is that we undertake during this season. This is the incarnation of the gods. So, for that reason, we theosophical students of this great philosophy of the masters need to understand what it is our duty and how to conduct ourselves. There are two words in this statement here, the title, practical and occultism. Everything that is put forth for our understanding and use in the civilized world of ours has that word practical in it. But do we really know what it means? What does it mean to be practical? And who can really define occultism in its true meaning? So, what is practical? Is it something that we accept because it guides us to do stuff in our day-to-day world? What is its significance? When we look around, what is it that men apply this word to? Practical. It is truly our daily activities that this word applies to. But who's conducting the daily activities? Now, in the theosophical literature, man is divided into 7 principles, and we have gone through those, and that is not the purpose of this talk today, but it is this way. There is the higher triad, Atma Buddhi Manas, and we'll just do it this way, and that is the quaternary. Body being the least important, as we read today. Then comes Jiva, the life principle. Then comes our passions and desires. And what is missing? Linga Sarira, astral body. And not in this order, Sarira. Okay, today we're going to divide ourselves into 3 principles for the purpose of this talk. It just makes it a little bit easier. So we've just, the first student just read that in order to gain wisdom, what is it that we must seek out? The self. How do we seek out the self is the question here. The self. And in the process of finding the self, what is its purpose? Wisdom. We are then guided from within outwards. So, the self. And when you look around, even the scientific world uses this word practical. There are practical parts of science and non-applied parts of science. cosmogony, for instance, is the heavens or the universe and its activity into coming into being. And then there are sciences that are applied, like applied chemistry, because it gives immediate results as to what it is that you're undertaking. So when we take into consideration our daily activities, these are the basic principles that we need to think about. What about occultism? What is occult? Well, when you look at even these 7 principles, only one of them is visible, and that is the gross body. These 3 that at death separate itself from the body disintegrate. So what is occultism? Occultism is going from the visible to invisible, tangible to intangible. Do we pay attention to those things in our daily lives? And so this self that we're seeking is hidden, because what aspect does it represent? The higher aspect in us, the spiritual aspect. Even though it upholds everything, it is invisible and perceived at the highest level of meditation. So that is our talk today. And when the Delphic oracle says, "Men know thyself," it is this process it is describing to us, that this tangible going towards intangible, visible into the invisible, and we're looking for the hidden, this word. So that self is hidden. And just to give a little bit of background, when you look around, we have substance that is visible to us, this substance. Chairs, table, wood chairs and wood tables. And we know that it is made up of wood. But what's behind the wood? What upholds the wood together? There is an essence, and there's a substance, and then there's a form. And this essence is invisible. The substance is form, is what defines the form, but the essence behind the substance is invisible. And without that essence, there can be nothing in the universe. Because in the Secret Doctrine and all of the teachings of the Eastern philosophy, it is stated that there is one reality, one truth, one truth. Of course, it can be divided into smaller portions. One reality, one truth, and one substance principle. And without that, nothing can come into the visible universe, because that is the substratum that supports all that comes into the visible aspect of our universe. So how then would we define this essence? It is vitality. One of the students gave a talk about that. It is vitality. It is hidden, it is veiled, and it is the essence of everything that we see. So practicality then actually deals with the substance aspect, with the form. This here. When we say that something is practical, we're looking at its form in deciding its practicality. We're not looking at the essence here. So the modern civilization has gone to the extreme where it says, "Show me." give me something that I can perceive with my senses, and I will believe it. And we just read in that Voice of the Silence that senses fool us. Senses fool us. Why is that? Well, for instance, during the daylight hours, we can perceive our world. But are we really looking at it, or just partially perceiving what's there? And if we want to look at the heavens, then we have to wait for it to get dark. So light and dark are opposite ends of the spectrum, but they both have something to teach us. Because you would not see the starry heavens if that darkness was not there. And what is this substance? Well, in the philosophy of the masters, from this one reality, one truth, one substratum, in order to come to form, it is presented to our understanding that it evolves, because the one reality puts it out of itself, so to speak, because it is emanation that is going to bring about what is happening in our Mahamanvantara, or that great age that this period is given. 15 digits. It has 15 digits in it. 311 trillion, 40 billion years. So it is a tremendous amount of a duration, and it is portioned into smaller yugas for our understanding, and also as to what principle it is that we are developing, at what sense we are also going to obtain. As you know, we have 5 senses at this time. But what about the senses? Can we really use them without the mind? Because what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste is translated through the brain, and that is what gives our understanding of the universe. So the substance side of nature is our mental activity, because that is what gives us an understanding of what we are looking at, what we are touching, and so forth. So when we are studying these principles at their root, this is theosophy, because theosophy says in order to obtain an understanding of the self, we're going to go inside of ourselves, not outside, inside. What about the senses? They give us information about externalities, but the one self of all, which is the oversoul of the whole visible and invisible, represented by the self, which is the spiritual aspect of our lives, can only be gotten at when we go inside. It's not an external, but an internal process that theosophy describes. Sorry, put this linga here. Okay, so internal, not external. Okay. What is it that we are told in order to obtain this wisdom? We are told that the personality aspect of the human being is concerned about itself. It's self-oriented. But it's not this self. It's this self. A small s. It is concerned about itself. It wants to know for itself. But in order to learn about this higher aspect of ourselves, what is it that we need to become? We need to become universal. From personal, then, we're going to go to impersonal or universal. It is impartite because there's only one self. Impersonal. So, we're moving from the personal. What is that dependent on? Senses. Because the personal gets information from the external universe, processes it into the brain. The mind then enables us to understand what it is we're looking, sensing, hearing, so forth. But this internal aspect of ourselves enables us to see humanity as one family. One unit. So this is corporate humanity. All of us. That's a good word to use. Corporate humanity. Made up of individuals, but in our collectivity, we are corporate humanity. Because our concern then is coming from here, from the one self, which is depicted this way, from the core. That core is the welfare of all, because it is based on strict justice. Strict justice means that we are all in that same pot. So when we are looking at the other, from which perspective are we going to look at them? From the material world or from the soul perspective? So our soul life then needs to express itself. We are here to develop our soul life because we're here to experience for the soul's purpose. It is not for the personality, it's for the soul, because it's the soul that needs to find expression. And when we look at the other human being and we see them as souls, we are on the way to this universal aspect of ourselves. We're not looking at it from the substance perspective, but we're looking at it from the inner, the spiritual soul perspective. So when I look at another human being, that human being is part of me. I am a reflection from that, and the other person is a reflection from me, because we're not separate from one another. We constitute in our totality the complete whole, the spiritual whole. There are no divisions in that world, no divisions. No divisions. So, once the mind intellectually understands this and is that there is conviction there that this is the mode of the functioning of the universe, and the person is fitting themselves into this mode of functioning in the universe, then we're expressing the soul nature in ourselves. Why is this important? Why is it important to give true value to things? Because humanity, this civilization at this time, considers material things of the highest value. And we're reminded to give things their true value. In other words, not with the sense perception, but the inner cultivated discrimination. viveka, discrimination. When we have started to discriminate as to the true value of things, what does it bring forth? We talked about for humors briefly in another talk. It shows the proportion of what we're expressing in ourselves. Are they balanced, or is one aspect of us out of proportion? Because whatever malady, imperfection that we have, the solution of it is internal to each human being. That imperfection is there because we need to work on it, to understand where it comes from and how to get rid of it. Or another way of looking at it, for instance, if we have health issues, we talked about it before, that's the last stage where that imperfection shows. It starts with the mind, it comes all through the other sheaths, and its last place is the body. And then it is being released. But are we healing the lives and then releasing them? Those are the questions that need to be asked. So true value then is understanding the proportionate value of things and how they're expressed in ourselves, and what we are going to do about the disproportionate ones. So this, people constantly say, how do we do it? How do we do it? This is the way we do it. Because in the scheme of the universal soul and a spiritual world, each human being, after the midpoint of the fourth round, progresses by self-induced, self-devised effort. Because the imperfection that is in each of us, even though as a family belongs to all of us, that particular aspect that individual is working on karmically belongs to that particular person. That doesn't mean that we do not help, but that each one of us have to work our own defects ourselves. Now, practical occultism has tremendous value in this sense to the theosophical students. It says, one of the fundamental laws is that the cause of evil not only lies within us, but that each has to overcome that cause of evil by individual self-effort. So that self-effort is necessary for us to move forward with. When we translate this or put it over to the theosophical students are constantly bombarded with, well, you're all talking about karma and reincarnation. You talk about oneness of life. Well, where is the solution that you're presenting to the world? Constantly, theosophical students are bombarded with that statement. You're just talking, you don't do anything. Okay? But we do something. We talked about corporate, start again. Corporate humanity. So we are one family. Okay. If I correct the defect in me, I have removed it from my family. It affects my community because I'm a role model to all those that come into my sphere. The nation is affected because as pockets of individuals are doing the same self-induced, self-devised effort in removing the discrepancies from themselves, they're also becoming exemplars to others. Faults, if you like. Because each individual that exhibits a particular fault or discrepancy in their nature has the solution within themselves to correct it with. The higher self or the soul is showing the personality how to improve its life and align itself to receive instruction from the higher self. Because the purpose of the inner life is to ask the inner self for guidance. Are we doing that? So I'm sorry, I have to take it off. But the corporate humanity must stay in your minds at all times, that we are not separate. There is no separation. And when we start living as souls, this is what we are exhibiting in our nature. We're asking for guidance from the inner self. We want to know the inner self, and how are we going to know it if we do not align ourselves for its purpose? We are here for soul expression, we said, for those of you who did not hear it. And soul expression is in every act that I conduct every single day of my life. It is not the large picture that matters, but the individual acts matter tremendously at this stage, of our development, because that defines who I am and who I am listening to. At this stage, and we're going to go and read a little bit from that article. At this stage, then, you have become universal. You're impartite, impersonal, and you're fitting yourself for soul expression. How does that show itself? You become altruistic. Altruistic. What else? You become a philanthropist. What else? Your actions are based on charity and the welfare of all. We are not separate. When I eat, I'm eating for everyone. Even though everyone does not have food, if in my mind I'm eating for everyone, that makes a difference, because you're showing gratitude to great nature, you're showing gratitude to the air, the sun, the soil, all of that comes into it. You're impersonalizing it. And that imprint is necessary for corporate humanity. This is what the theosophical students are doing. This imprint is necessary for corporate humanity because change has to come one at a time. When we look at the charities of the world today, they are going with externalities. What is that? That's the effect. They are not dealing with the causes. They're dealing with the effects. Now, nowhere it says that we shouldn't help those in need. But what it does say is it will not remove the condition and eliminate it. Those who are suppressed, those who are poor, have become that way because there is another class causing that to be in place. If we were only taking what we need, there is enough for everybody. But if we take more than what we need, if we look at the ant colonies and how they live, that is a great example for humanity to follow. Each ant only takes what is necessary from the food supply. And they, that way, make sure that all is taken care of. So, we need to then address causes. Causes are dependent on each one of us because we have lived millions of years. Our thought, speech, and action have brought us to where we are now, and that also brings what is your responsibility. But what needs to happen is a reversion of the thinking process. For instance, if I say, I don't want to be sick because I don't want to go to the doctor and give them my money. I don't want to take drugs to get better. But still, it is personal right here. It's personal to myself. What is that? That's selfish. Personal deeds are selfish. Selfish. But if I say, I have a duty to corporate humanity because I want to be a good role model, because this is my civic duty to show the way, then it becomes impersonal. Impersonal, because it is printed on the astral light and it has impetus to draw all of the other souls to it and function at that level. So we're applying this impersonality not just to the physical, but to the moral and to the mental aspects of our life, and that then propels us towards this universality, the inner life. So the study of the great propositions of the philosophy of theosophy, of the important tenets and doctrines of the sacred science, lies in its application, each for himself in the daily struggle of life, so that we know what we are doing from day to day, to deliberate living of the life, and a definite goal and objective in front of us to be reached. Many people think that when they have attended meetings and read books that they are living the higher life. And this says here, without its application to daily life is not so. The practice of theosophy must be done individually with himself first. When he has done this, he will find what the difficulties and obstacles are that stand in the way of humanity. All the time we are trying to help our fellow men when we do not know what ails them. What is it that they are suffering from? And how can these be overcome? If we overcome them in ourselves, then we know what the difficulties are, and therefore we can point out what we have mastered in doing so for ourselves to all the others that need that help. How do we look at children? How do we look at the criminals? Do we try to see them as immortal, divine human beings with faults, or do we condemn them because of the place they are at? For there it is that our real help to our fellow men comes from the hidden side of our nature, whether we call it God. This is not the anthropomorphic God. Self. And what is the science? The Sanskrit word Atma Vidya. Hidden self. Because that inner self, that little voice, that conscience that says, don't do this because it is wrong, comes from this higher aspect. But we have to listen. We have to put it into practice. It says here, millions of our fellow men will not come to an intellectual study of this philosophy, nor will they understand theosophy, the eternal wisdom, in the sense that those who study it understand it. It is the path of the few, and always has been and always will be. But the work of the few is to see those spiritual energies that are throbbing in the hearts of all those millions of human beings, and with courage and compassion, with strength, faith, and humility, reverence of the right kind, not the sentimental mushiness that goes under that name, to lead people along so they may stand on their own feet and fight their own battles, each in his own sphere of life. So this is the duty of all theosophical students who understand the philosophy, to make a practical application of it, to see the hidden springs of this one spiritual consciousness which sits in the heart of every single human being, its activities, its manifestations, the shadow of the light that it casts as weaknesses, as ignorance, to help them fight their own battles more intelligently, because we have understood the great laws of life. That is the task that lies before all of us. And as we go into a new season, as was pointed out, as we go into this new season, when several will be away from the center of work, to begin to carry out wherever we may be and whatever we may be doing, to carry out the task of finding out, fighting his own tendencies. That is the task which, once undertaken, will bring us the power of illumination from within, not only bring us peace and consolation, but the strength, the compassion, which will enable us to see that we are but parts of nature, that in us too, Mother Nature is working in a subtle, hidden, mysterious way, fulfilling the great law of compassion, the great law of universal brotherhood. So, it brings us knowledge that bears on the mundane affairs of everyday life, to live like a brother, a hero, and theosophist, so there radiates out from all the orifices of the temple of the human body a power which is peace, a strength which is joy and beauty, which is energy that, flowing out of us, sustains, instructs, and inspires our fellow men. And this then brings us to the attention of those holy masters who lift us from the world of the mortal, unveiling to us the glories of the world of the immortal, to pass out from the unreal to the real, from darkness into light, that is transforming this world, a world that is full of sorrow and suffering, into a world that is happy, not as the ordinary humanity regards happiness, but happy in the sense it is always progressive, going towards a higher life. Noting the onward march, not of human bodies, but human souls, we emerge triumphant, not by the power of some outside God, but by the power of the inner immortal ruler within ourselves. Now we'll open it to questions. Kim has a question.
How do we How do we exercise if we're in the knowledge of our higher self, and
I'm sorry.
we get some of the concepts of we understand some of the concepts of our higher self. We do recognize it, but then um, life has its own course, and we kind of not follow it, but life is in front of us. We live it. We use it to, or as a practical way of exercising our higher self. Is there if for people who, let's say, aren't in the knowledge of Theosophical Union, people who aren't in the knowledge of these different outlets for knowledge, where would they go? How would they sharpen their higher self? Is it possible to sharpen your higher self just by experience? With the very little bit of knowledge that you have regarding, okay, the normal people, they don't know anything about practical occultism, right? So how do they sharpen their higher self? Is it through religious organizations? Is it through...
You said sharpen the higher self?
Yeah.
And what do you mean by that? Sharpen, what do you mean? Because that higher self is the spiritual aspect of you. It is the knower, the perceiver, the enjoyer and sufferer. Because here it is up here, but in the body on earth in incarnation, it has no powers. It is not of this earth. Its consciousness does not belong to earth. It belongs to the spiritual world of our universe.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I'm not articulating what I'm trying to say here.
I think I understand. Let me put it this way. You're asking those people who are in millions, who are not yet familiar with these concepts, how do they then bring the higher self into their daily activity?
Yes.
Would that be appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. This philosophy is always there. The wisdom of the ages is always there. It becomes the responsibility of each human being to tap into it. And we read it in the voice where it was said, what was it said? Let's go back to it. And I am answering your question. Yes. O teacher, what shall I do to reach to wisdom? Is the student, the ordinary person, asking. O wise one, what to gain perfection? This individual is awakened to the inner possibilities of its soul life. And your question is saying, what about those who are not awakened yet? Okay. Search for the paths, but O Lanu, O student, be of clean heart before thou startest on thy journey. Before thou takest thy first step, learn to discern the real from the false, the ever fleeting from the everlasting. Learn above all to separate head learning from soul wisdom, the eye from the heart. Okay? Okay, the eye, the ear, the nose, the mouth, the tongue are all sense organs, are they not? Okay, it gives us perception of our universe. This is where a lot of people are. They live in the sensuous universe with their senses obtaining information, processing it with their brain and mind, and just working through life in that manner, right? They're not awakened to the inner possibilities of their soul yet, okay? So they're concentrated on this aspect of their life. But there's a bridge here, right? We always say the mind works in two different ways, lower and higher. The higher is the divine aspect of that mind. Even though when we do that, we don't imply that there is two minds in the human being. There's only one mind. But by your thought, speech, and activity, you're either drawing all of the atomic structure of those sheaths down to earth, or by the spiritual aspect of this altruistic service towards the higher. Even ordinary people have feelings of the heart, that they understand what it is to help another, how to love, how to cherish your children and sacrifice for them. That is showing compassion in a different aspect of life. They're not awakened to the higher aspect of the soul life, but they nevertheless show qualities that express it in partiality. Even if you don't know the philosophy, you still are raising a family and you love them. You cook and feed them. You serve them. You're showing compassion when your child comes home and cries and says, "Mommy, I was bullied today." Is that not true? So you're expressing some of those qualities in your everyday life, whether you know this philosophy or not. What it is said here is those who understand the philosophy need to make this philosophy practical in their lives. And that practicality comes from going from the visible to the invisible, because even the lower sheath, only one, the body is visible. None of the rest is visible. But the essence, the spiritual essence, the soul life of each individual is what upholds all the rest. Without that soul energy, you couldn't be doing anything. How do you lift your finger? By will. Secret doctrine tells us that the will expresses itself in motion when you demand from your leg or from your arm to do activity. You're commanding it through your mind, but it is the will that gives it propulsion. And she tells you what those powers are on page 290 of Secret Doctrine 1. It is very beneficial to go and look at them, because she is telling you that the universal aspect of the cosmos correspond to the human to a degree. What's out there is in us, but we cannot connect it to ourselves from the outside in. We have to reverse the process and go from inside out, because that self, that higher self, the essence of the substance of your body, substance of your mind, whatever it is that you are, its essence, it upholds you as a unit. Without it, there would be no life, because jiva is jivatma. It is a radiation of Atman. It's a spiritual energy. So it generates that activity for the soul's experience only. It is stated in the writings. So we are a soul, but part of the other, because all of us as souls make that complete whole, the spiritual whole. There's no separation in the spiritual world. In the soul world, we are all one. This is what the error comes from. We look at each other as bodies, as image. But this image has three aspects to it. It has the essence aspect, deity or God. It has the self or spiritual soul aspect of each human being, and it has the form or substance aspect. If the universe is triune, so are we, because we are a small copy of the universe with the principles. And these are explained to give us an understanding that we are not sinful little human beings. We are gods in the making. We have faults, but that is there to show the way to perfection, because as you remove it, you can also help someone else remove it. So this is how it is done. Those who know has the duty, ooh, my pen is, or dharma, to undertake this process willingly, to align themselves to that universal aspect of the cosmos and work from within outside. Only then does the intellectual aspect of this philosophy becomes applied, and it becomes practical and useful in life, not just to the individual, but to corporate humanity. Because in the Gita it says, men follow whatever highest is being practiced amongst them. So you are setting a precedence. And all those minds telepathically are attuned to that wavelength will also perceive that. Because Madame Blavatsky in the 19th century, by traveling all over the world, constituted a matrix. She came to crush the Piscean age thinking and introduce the Aquarian way of thinking. The Aquarian way of thinking is the universal aspect, the soul aspect. But at the same time, we are told Kama is going to flower. What does that mean? Kama, at its core, Kamadiva, its concern is for all. And it's on a strict justice that comes. It's love, but it's the universal aspect of love. So if it's going to flower, who is doing the flowering? We are. We express love in its universal aspect, not in its personal aspect. Because the personal is what? Selfish, self-concerned, greedy. I want more. And I'm telling you, you may not go. I need you here. You're expressing, demanding from the other in your life as to how they are going to behave. But the other universal gives, does not expect anything in return. Because we talked about sacrifice and gratitude. Sacrifice is that something has been done for us without asking anything in its return, right? Someone has sacrificed for us. Gratitude is, I understand that concept of sacrifice, that someone has done something for us. I want to fit myself into the same mode, and I want to do something for others without expecting something in return myself. That is how we fulfill this duty.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you where the soul come from.
Where does the soul come from?
Yeah. And what is the difference between spirit and soul? And I understand that spirit is evolving and soul is evolving, and with them and bodies evolve.
Body evolves?
Body, yeah.
Body,
yeah.
So you want to know the evolution of the body, the evolution of the soul, and how the spirit is related to all that. Well, we need another hour.
You got about 3 minutes.
Okay, very good question, but very detailed. What are we told about the soul? Mind, human soul. Astral or linga, animal soul. Because it coalesces passions and desire with passions and desires at the end of life becomes one. Okay? What's the other one in us? What's the highest in you? Buddhi. A spiritual discrimination. Because these words don't have equivalence, really. They had to come up with these expressions. A spiritual discernment. What else is it? What else is it? It's the vehicle of spirit. It has to come through into this world through something, right? Here it is. Atma Buddhi Manas. This is what this is. The expression of Atma Buddhi Manas in the human body is a spiritual discernment, which is your Buddhi. What is that? That is your spiritual soul. Comes from the one life that we talk about, right? It comes from the one life. Just like the sun, it shines out into the universe. All of those rays, consider them like a ray, a soul, coming from the one that is behind the physical sun. What's behind the physical sun? The invisible core, the spiritual core. What is that called? Dupree? What is that called?
I mean,
what's the core of that sun behind the physical sun?
are you referring to like the logos or the center or
Yeah.
the spirituals?
The spiritual sun.
Yeah.
Okay. The core of that spiritual sun controls the physical sun at an archaic level, but it works under law as well. So this is where it comes from. You come from one source that's a spiritual, and all these vehicles in you function to bring that light into our universe, because it is not of this earth. It then goes through Buddhi because it's its vehicle. But Buddhi is also wisdom in you, because when it becomes active, then it is discernment. It enables you to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it. That's why we just said that the power is inside of you as to how you are going to remove the part that is undesirable in you or needs correction. Okay? So the ability to remove it is there. But first we have to understand what it is we are and what it is undesirable, so that we can go about helping ourselves in removing that defect. So here it is, right here.
And defect comes from the body.
Body.
Body, B-O-D-Y.
Body.
Body.
Oh, body.
Body, yeah.
Okay. As this,
why we are not perfectly
well,
made?
atoms are the ones that make. Okay, when you go to the all the way to the one reality, that one reality, what does she tell you in the secret doctrine? It has a spiritual aspect, a spirit or a spiritual. And then it has a substance aspect. This spiritual is called Parabrahma, Parabrahm. And that one is called Mula Prakriti, because she tells us atoms are psycho, spiritual. They are not physical. Psycho-spiritual. The atoms are ever present. They never ever are not. So not only the spiritual side is permanent in the sense that it goes on a continuum, it's never lost, whether it is in Manvantara or at rest, but the atoms are also all there. And that is why she tells the scientific world will never be able to solve their problems until they acknowledge that the atoms are not spiritual. Molecular constitution, she says, only belongs to this earth. It does not exist anywhere else, not even in the other solar particles in our system. So Mula Prakriti and Parabrahm are like this. One side is the spirit, the other side is the atomic structure of the universe. And by their motion, each atomic center has a motion that is the inherent motion of our universe. They provide the motion of the universe, and they keep it in harmony because they know how to do what they need to do perfectly well. At all times, they are under that law that is that control. Central spiritual sun is what I want you to say, Dupree. Central spiritual sun is the one that is behind the sun that enables that energy to come into our universe. So you need to connect all these things in your mind because we are not separate from anything else. She says every atom in the future is going to become a human individual because an atom is a universe in its own right. It has a nucleus and a nucleolus. And I need to finish it.
I don't think, was that your question? I think part of her question was, if I got it right,
where does it come from?
The body. She was wanting to know about the body. Why isn't it perfect? What was your? I didn't have.
Did you say why our body is not? Yeah. Our body is perfect. It has been developed to perfection. Our body is perfect. If it shows illness, it is because I'm imparting that thought to it. How do we cause imperfection in ourselves? By wrong thinking, wrong speech. What does wrong mean? Not in harmony. Disharmonizing our own individual atomic structure. Atoms are perfect in their molecular constitution, and they gather to give us existence on the universe. Look at me. All of them are working to sustain my life. Do I show gratitude to them? Do I acknowledge them? Because they are part of the universe, and so am I. But they are.
So they come to you, they choose you.
Well, they are attracted to you.
They choose Kim.
No, you choose them. They are attracted to you. Electromagnetic impulse.
Atma, or who chooses me?
What do you mean? What part of you is expressing itself?
Why
if that Atma is active, the impulse is coming from it, and it goes towards universal and altruistic. You know it yourself where it's coming from, because your activity, your speech and thought is an expression of it in everyday life. But if you're personal, it's the kamic aspect that is in ascendancy, kama manas, lower mind, personality. And you know that too, because anxiety, concern for yourself, concern for wealth, all that is personal. It does not have anything to do with this triad up here. That is universal.
Yeah. One thing, Marina, that what I think would help is the idea that the universe is electromagnetic, and through your thoughts and your actions and your thought, action, and deed, or feelings,
speech,
feelings,
speech. The speech.
There's always a reaction, and that reaction is magnetic. So you pull these things to you. You know, through your actions, there's a reaction. Through your feelings, you have feelings, and then through your thoughts. So
here's an atom.
It all comes back to you. So you're doing the choosing through your. See, human beings can choose.
What in me? What is it? Soul choosing?
You're all one. Your principles are not scattered. You're a composition of all of those. You think that is what is the human soul or the Buddhic part of you. If it is Buddhi, up. If If it is the human soul, it's your mind. Now,
the mind, as this student understands it, the mind, that's the human aspect, the fifth principle, right? Okay, so now, as speaker was saying, if you go higher, altruism, you go up.
okay.
But if you are personal, selfish, then you bring those attractions to you.
Here's
so
the
you.
atoms.
The selfish atoms come to me.
Yes, everything.
Look.
So I mean, why they are selfish if they
Look.
come from the
Look, please.
central
Look. Here are the atomic structure. These are psycho-spiritual. So your thought affects them.
Yeah.
If it is beneficent and harmonious, it goes towards atomic light. If it is sensuous, your thoughts pulls it down to the personal. This is at all times, every second of your life, this process is going on. You're in charge of your own life. You can determine how you're going to think, what you're going to say, and how you're going to live your life. It's your choices that makes the difference.
So that's what makes me different than the ant.
The ant is very intelligent at its own level. But when you learn how to perceive what goes in the mind of the ant, HBB tells us, then you would understand that the ant is a very intelligent unit.
Yes,
and it does not belong to this world. It came from a different world to ours.
Yeah.
as well.
Same, same.
So I was just focusing on, see, the energy coming from the central spiritual source is like, say, neither negative or positive. You know, it's you doing
It's
the
harmonious.
coloring.
It's you making it colored.
So that's
You're
why I
coloring
become
it.
selfish. It's you doing it.
It's you doing it.
But
Either you're doing this.
Me, it's my body, B-O-D-Y.
Well, are you
No.
separate from your mind?
No.
Spirit, what is...
It's
What do
you,
you mean?
the
You
thinker.
as an individual. You have a mind
And you're the actor.
and you're acting.
Different levels of thoughts.
Just,
Well,
no, think
same
about
process
this.
goes in it.
Your body is only your vehicle.
Yes.
That's it.
But you're influencing
I
it.
cannot understand why out of this perfect comes imperfect.
It's your
No,
thing. It's you.
it's your life. It's the perfect is in the divine realm. It's the spiritual aspect. But now we have descended into substance. This is the fourth
But substance is atoms as well.
That's true. That's true. What she's saying, but
matter.
you being a force, you affect, influence these atoms. Okay, you color them. You give them character, like elementals. You know, let's say little psychic forces of energy. Your thought, just like you can influence your children. Okay, you influencing these lives that's out here in the universe. You give them character, like the elementals.
Okay. Look
The
here.
speaker.
We have come down. I'm finished. We're going to close it. We have all come down and submerged ourselves into matter. We were virgin spirits at the top, but now we are in matter. Our responsibility is to uplift the matter with everything else that's around us. We are imprinting continuously, but our responsibility is to uplift it to a higher degree. Okay?
So matter itself is not perfect compared to soul and spirit.
Well, at its origin, it is, but it descends into lower and lower levels to come to this level where it becomes visible because it has solidity. Okay? So from this point on, we're going towards a spirituality. And this is why this philosophy was brought out, to give us an understanding of who or what we are. But our principles are explained that way, to give us an understanding. But they work as a unit. Your thoughts, your speech is linked. As I'm thinking, I'm speaking. They're not separate. They're not all over the place. I'm a unit. All these processes go in me together. My thinking, my speech, my action that comes from those are all united. Brain coordinates the function of the physical unit. And that is why I went to the heart, because the heart is the organ of the higher self, it is stated par excellence. When our heart has become intelligent and compassionate at the same time, then we're expressing our heart. But the brain is analytical. The brain has to also learn compassion. The heart has to become intelligent, and our head has to become compassionate. The two together has to work as a unit, not analytical over there, and we're going to justify what our action is going to be. That's what human beings do. They bring about justification. When they know something is not right, they know it, but they justify their action by some new philosophy. This is the real philosophy that needs to be expressed. Thank you, everyone, and I will talk to you outside of this hour, but we need to wrap it.
We're going to have a 15-minute break for refreshments, and then we'll start back in our study of the ocean of theosophy.
Thank you.